So today, Hershe, we're talking about community. This is an interesting topic, and I want to begin by sharing that when I taught at the college level, I did an introductory course for my students. And the first topic that we covered was the definition of community. So I'm going to ask you, how would you define community?
That's a good one. Thank you, Nancy. It's good to be with you today. I would define community as shared interests and shared goals, and just overall a commonality of purpose.
Interesting. So I would then ask my students, I give various examples such as people on a bus or people on a train, or, are they a community?
Yes, and if you've seen the film Speed with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, then you can see how important that community can be. Um,
So you added something that I think is really important about a common interest. And so a lot of times community gets defined as it's a group of people, but it's more than a group of people. It's a group of people with a shared common interest. And so if you think of the word community and you put a line after the word common, it becomes common unity. It isn't just that we share something in common, but we're unified. There is a sense of togetherness about it. So hence, if that train or that bus is stalled, if there is some outside threat to the well-being of the passengers within that vehicle, it becomes a community. But other than that, they're strangers sharing, a ride to and from wherever. Uh,
right.
and so it has to be that sense that we do feel a bond, we feel connection. And to me, that word community, and it connotes connection. And I'm all about, and I think you are too, about that connection, about creating bonds and relationships of value.
Yeah. I think that, as you were speaking, it was occurring to me that when we talk about community, we're entering a community with that idea of sharing, with that idea of the unified purpose and goal. If you get on a bus and the bus is going to the beach, everybody who gets on the bus is possibly going to the same stop, but you wouldn't know it. They don't know necessarily one another. They can meet there, they can become unified if there's an issue that arises. With community, we are creating it or joining it with the express purpose of everybody working together. And if you look at rules of community, when you join one, it will often say, we are one for all and all for one. This isn't, if you're a taker, we're not interested. We're looking for people who want to give and contribute.
Yeah, and so as you were speaking, I was thinking to myself again that purpose, that the fact that we're united in a shared goal and a shared destination. And it's more than just the fact that we are in the same vehicle or the same space, but that it's a choice that we're making because of the fact that we really want to connect and be united, and support each other in achieving that goal. To me, that is, again, something so important about community.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, a lot of this is to say that we are forming our own community. That was something that we had planned at the outset of this know and sell pointers. The goal was to, share ideas, share my expertise in messaging, your expertise in sales, and where those two things intersect and how one can benefit the other. But really, our greatest joy, I think, that you and I share is working with people and engaging with people, whether they're clients or whether they're community members. So I think that's what kind of inspired what we're up to.
And again, let's go back to that shared purpose, that sense of goals, because I do think that is, again, what unites us is that uh, we want to be with like-minded people who are trying to achieve the same goal. And so what I have valued about your contribution And to me, it's a nice continuum. It sets people up for success, and the common goal here is helping people achieve a livelihood that is comfortable and easy and sustainable and very fulfilling, one that nourishes the soul and isn't just a financial support, but that emotionally there's something that really makes a difference and matters.
Yeah. One of the we're always inviting the audience to kind of come up with ideas for new topics, but I have a topic that it might be interesting, is the question of just for the money. You know, doing something just for the money. Because the personal reason I brought that up was because I had thought at a certain point, at this point in my life and career, that maybe there was a benefit to doing it just for the money. Like you could say, well, is there some thing that I want to get, or thing that really is, the end goal isn't the money itself, but should I focus on that? And I realized, well, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm connected by the purpose and by the people, and that's what it really is. But for younger people, especially for some people, at any phase in life, the question of should I do it just for the money, or should I put the money first as a priority, is a question that we're constantly faced with. So I think it might be an interesting topic from a messaging and a sales point of view. How do you reconcile that? Is that a way that you can operate, and so forth?
It's interesting you brought that topic up. Yesterday, I was interviewed on a podcast with Neil Wilkins, who is a marketing strategist, and we got into something like this, in which I talked about books that I've read by Robert Kiyosaki called Cash Flow Quadrant, or perhaps you've heard of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the reason I brought this up is because he recommends that when you take a position, a job, that you do so knowingly and thoughtfully with what can I learn? Because it's not about the money and the
Right.
compensation, although that may be a big motivation for taking that position, but it's the skills and how my character will be developed as a result of this choice to trade my time for dollars. And by the way, when you're an employee or even self-employed, that's exactly the point he makes, that we're trading time for money.
Yeah. Yeah, I had, as a guest on my podcast not too long ago. Amazing Robin is the moniker she uses, but she has a certain level of clairvoyance, and but a no nonsense kind of, very business oriented and human facing. But one of the points she made was, it's like people will say, well, what's the best thing I can do to prepare for some of these eventualities, or some of these crazy things that are supposed to happen? And she was like, very matter of factly, uh you know just
Mhm.
acquire new skills. It's not about building a nuclear, fortress, nuclear proof fortress. She's like, acquire skills. No matter what happens in the world, no matter what changes, the more skills you acquire, the better prepared you'll be to handle it. And it doesn't have to be nightmare scenarios, or even as a family, you can acquire skills. You can acquire survival skills that are just part of becoming more mature as a human being. I really resonated with that.
And I would say that acquiring skills to me is investing in yourself.
Mm,
And again, there needs to be something thoughtful and considered when you think about, what taking a job, and whether you take that job, Hirsch, to be employed, or whether you take that job to be hired as a freelancer or independent, provider of a service. Think about the investment in you, because at the bottom line, no matter what takes place, you walk away with yourself. You
yeah.
walk away with whatever skills or character that you've developed, and hence the community that we're in. has a lot to do with who I become. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. A good quote for today's world might be, you know, they who acquire the most skills win. You know, um, people who are constantly growing, constantly getting better. That's another thing. Is the older that I get, certainly the less attached I become to failure, to the notion of whether something works or not. Did something work? And I'm not speaking in the cumulative sense. I'm speaking really in the experiential sense. The less attached I am to a specific outcome is a better way to put it.
Yet another juicy topic for us to dive into,
Yeah.
down the road about failure. But I want to bring us back to community because, again, as you indicated, and I want to highlight and underline for our listeners here, we've decided to invest in something we call Know and Sell Insiders. And it is a community that we are forming. And you might think about whether or not you might find this to be a good option for you. A community of like-minded individuals who are committed to growing their business through what I'm going to call new age marketing and sales approaches, rather than the traditional way of rah rah hiss boo bang, let's cheer us on to victory. It's a know yourself, know your brand, and sell with authenticity rather than to anyone. And so this is the community that we have decided to form, and we're carving out and hashing out the details of what it is, but planting that seed for you right now. Because what would be the value of being a part of a community? Because to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I would also use a term like real world marketing and sales. Um, I've related to that for some time. Everything theoretically is real world, but what it means to me is up to the minute. It's dynamic. It's always changing. We are certainly well aware of that. The world is changing faster than it seems than it ever has, and that makes sense. And I'm sure to some beings further advanced and outside of our solar system, that we're moving very slowly, but or we're very slow to get it, but
That is it. We're slow
we're
to get
slow
it.
to get it. But I think that there are things that we pick up on. There are things that change. There are practices that we try, and to that point I just made, try, and some work and some don't. What works for you may not work for me, but I think our community is going to be designed to feel dynamic in that way.
Yeah.
It benefits from everybody's presence. It vibrates with the presence of people who are energetic and wanting to learn and wanting to grow.
Right. So just again, seed planting for you to think about community. I know that many of us are working on our own, and we've chosen to do that. And certainly there's something very attractive about being your own boss. But I like to tease about the fact that I work for the worst boss in the world, me. Doesn't give me vacation. She doesn't cut me any slack. She's in my head 24/7, often not with great messages, I have to tell you. These are not the sort of things I would say to you, Hershe, out loud, but boy, do I say it inside me. Hence, this is, again, part of the reason why I'm looking forward to being in part of a community of individuals who are striving to have a good lifestyle, make a good living, but also importantly, make a contribution to their society.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And we all have those voices. We all have those taskmasters, who demand a lot of us, and it is quite often ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves to give ourselves a little bit of a break. I
Yeah.
do talk back to myself quite a bit,
Yeah.
and I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I have to silence that, the negative Nelly voice in my
Right.
mind. Yeah. So we're
Right.
going to sign off at this point. We look to see you next week. For those of you, by the way, observing Passover, we send you wishes for a happy Passover week. To your sales success, it's Nancy Zare, sales whisperer.
And Hershe Rephun, the message therapist. A happy Passover to all who are celebrating.